Y'all wanna get turned? I heard that you trying to go climb to the top. I start from the bottom, it's kinda like putting on socks. You ready? Yeah. Y'all ready or not? Don't let me get hot, though. Clean like a mop, whole world is shot. This pace gon' knock, this place gon' rock. Y'all ready or not? Ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? Pay my dues, punch that clock. You ready or not? You ready or ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? Pay my dues, touch that clock. Ready or not? You ready or
Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of Pain to Profits. And today I got my boy, Zeke.
Yep. What's up? What's up?
Owner of Supernatural Eats. And we actually worked together for quite a while back in the day. We had some tenure together working in the world of marketing and marketing technology. And then he went off on his journey to go build his own empire. And so today we're talking all about the ups, the downs, the highs and the lows, and everything that you know in between that. So thanks for being here, dude.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here, happy to support, and I like the setup.
Yeah.
It's really good, man.
You like what
it.
we've done with the place?
Yeah. I mean, you transformed it, and I just like what you're doing with Pursuit, bringing everything in from pain to profit into Pursuit, and you're connecting with people and networking, and you're just always building, man. I love it.
I just love people. And so this was just a cool spot for us to do that. I can't take any credit, though, because my wife is ultimately the designer. I just throw stuff out into the ether, and then she actually brings it down to reality, brings it to life. Because if I would have done it, the table would have been about 10 sizes too big.
Yeah.
And the wall wouldn't have been as cool and lit up. And
Right.
you know, I probably would have just slapped some paint together. And so I can't take credit for that. I got to give credit where it's due. My wife is amazing. But let's talk about you, man. So you're running Supernatural Eats now.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing that for how long?
September 1st, 2015 is when we launched, and then I'd say we got started, January 2015 is when I really started to work on it. Took about 9 months to procure and actually open, though.
Cool. So what do you guys do?
So healthy meal preparation, catering, and we're into government food service now. The catering is more supplemental just for the healthy meal preparation. It takes a long time to build up the volume that you need in order to sustain a business. And so we're doing that, and we're doing government food service primarily is what the goal is. And what we really want to do is push that into the public health sector. We want to be able to provide kids with healthy food as opposed to what they're getting right now. And so we're kind of going this backdoor route of getting in with the government, and then later down the road, then we'll start coming down and hopefully getting into some public schools.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So before you launched Supernatural Eats, there's probably a catalyst event that kicked that off. But let's talk about what you were doing and then take us all the way up to the point where you're finally like, all right, screw this. I'm going all in on my own thing.
Ooh, I don't know that there was a real catalyst event at a certain point in time. I think it was more like the straw that broke the camel's back. In high school, I started down a tough path. And I got into the whole Oxycontin, the pills, the drugs. And I started there. And then I decided to go to culinary school to try to get out of it. That was always my goal. And so I went down to Arizona, still didn't really get out of it. And then when I came back to Colorado, had my son a couple of years after I was back in Colorado. And I'm like, shoot, I got to do something. And then I started down the career path of doing like sales and getting into marketing, and that's where I landed at Madwire.
Yep.
And so some of those skills kind of transpired, and I'm thinking, I got this culinary degree. I still love cooking, but cooking doesn't pay the bills because as a sous chef, you make like $14 an hour.
Right.
You know, I have a child to support, and I don't want to be scraping by the rest of my life. And so naturally, I'm always just trying to push. I've been like that since I was a kid, open up lemonade stands, go mow people's lawn for $10, whatever it is.
Right.
So I've always been that since I was a kid. And so working through all those jobs, it was kind of like, this isn't a fit. And I didn't really like the idea of somebody just always coming over me, telling me what to do, how I had to do it. I just wanted to if it was a sale, I wanted to get it done, and I wanted to make some money on it and not go off the template that somebody else told me I needed to be by. So all those things, man, just came one after the other. And then I'm like, shoot, I'm with my son one day, and I'm a single dad at this point, and I'm going through the rigmarole of like picking him up from school or from the babysitter's house, going home, cooking, cleaning, getting him in a bath, getting him to bed. And I realized there's no like one-on-one time. There's no myself and my son time. And I didn't grow up without it. I grew up without a dad. So I'm like, shoot, I don't want to go down that path and then create another me. I want to create a better version of me, right? Because that was something I always resented growing up. Like, shit, where's that guy at? You know,
Yeah.
like I need some guidance. I need to know whether I'm going left or right, or if I'm doing something right. You know, you fall off your bike and there's nobody there. Stuff like that just accumulates. And so I thought through it my whole life, and I'm like, shit, what can I do to just save 20 or 30 minutes so I can spend time with my son? And so I prepped a big old pan of lasagna one day, and we ate that all week. And for about 20, 30 minutes, man, I would just, grab some lasagna, put it on a plate, throw it in the microwave, and that's what we ate for a week straight. And I was able to watch some Mickey Mouse with him and just hang out, and then that kind of transpired into, if I'm going through this, there has to be tons of other people going through it. And that's where the idea started to sprout from.
So I guess there was a catalyst event. It just happened more slowly.
Yeah,
it wasn't
yeah.
like a lightning bolt happened. But
Right.
yeah, so that was a pain point for you, right? Of like time with your son, and then one person's pain is another person's profit, right? Hence the whole point of the show, right? So
Yeah.
you're solving that, and coming from the world of fitness, I hear that all the time. Oh, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Eating healthy, I got to cook something for my kids. I can't cook something healthy for me. Well, why can't it be healthy and taste good?
Yeah.
Right? And I think you've cracked the code on that, because your meals are bomb. Shameless plug. But so I love that. So then you start prepping for yourself. At what point do you say, okay, now I'm going to start taking this to the public? What was?
Oof. That kind of came through the jobs.
Okay.
So working and realizing like, hey, I can make money if I'm in sales, right? I don't know if it came natural to me, but I was just one of those guys where I turn it into a numbers game until I get good at something, and then I can start converting people with higher profit and better,
Yep.
more
That's
efficient.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's
Test the market, right?
Right. And so I knew I had that sales mentality in me, and I had the cooking. And so I'm like, why don't I just combine those and then figure everything else out? And so launching Supernatural Eats and bringing that to life it took me, I want to say like 2 years just to think of exactly what I wanted to do. And the Blue Aprons came out, and then I watched a Shark Tank about plated. And so I'm like, shoot, what if there was something where somebody got like organic food and they just got convenience dinners? It doesn't even have to be healthy. Because at that point, I wasn't really on a health train.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was just barely starting to pull away from a lifestyle that was drinking 3 to 4 times a week, doing drugs, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Just eating whatever and just trying to get by and save some time. So yeah, I would say it took a good 3 years, to transpire. But once that got into a point of, I knew that I had the skill set and I knew that I had the hustle behind me, that I just needed to figure everything else out behind it.
So obviously you spent a couple years thinking about it. Did you continue to work other jobs while you were getting this thing off the ground?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I left my corporate job at Tradesman in 2018, October. And that's when I went full all in. Up until then, it was really just a side hustle.
Yeah.
And the schedule was Monday through Friday at Tradesman. So I'd work Monday through Friday. Friday, I'd get off work. I'd go buy the food, and I would cook Saturday. And then I would plate and label all the food Sunday. And then I'd deliver it starting 2:33 in the morning on Monday. And then I'd go to my corporate job. And I did that for a year and a half before I went all in.
I love that. By the way, that's pretty badass.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy times.
So I think this is a question that people probably listening to the show always have. And I know what my answer is, but why didn't you just jump ship and go all in from like day one?
Well, I had a stint in 2015, so it's weird how it worked out, because I worked that same job from when I started September 1st, 2015. I left that job and tried to go all in, and I fell flat on my face. And I only made it like 3 months, but then I started a different job selling liquor for a while. So I did that for like 4 or 5 months. And then my old general manager at the job that I was at, he was bad, really bad, like just into drugs and wasn't showing up to work, would have us do everything for him. We didn't have any guidance. And so when I started Supernatural Eats, I'm like, this is a good time to just get out, go all in, see what I can do. And I just fell flat on my face. Like it was horrible.
What happened? What was it that you?
I mean, I tried reaching. I just realized that I was in obscurity. I would literally go and do the same business model that I was doing at Tradesman, and that was going door to door, talking to people. So I literally went to the same customers that I had just left at Tradesman, and I'm like, "Hey, I just started my business. Do you want some food? Like, I'll deliver to you. You know, just place an order on the website, and I'll bring it a couple days later." Yeah. And I got no traction. I had a lead list of like 3,000 people from Tradesmen. I called every single one of those construction companies. I was on social media. I would be making food, taking pictures just in my kitchen and being like, "Oh, I'm going to go do delivery." But in reality, it wasn't, you know. I was trying to like build hype behind it, man. And
you're just walking in your own front door like,
yeah,
"Hey, what's up?"
Yeah. And I was just trying to build it up, man. And I didn't know. Like I learned kind of the hard way. And 3 months later, I saved up a little bit of money just for bills for a few months. And I'm like, oh, in 3 to 6 months, like I'm going to have this thing off the ground, you know? And that's what you always think when you start out. Like I'm going to go zero. And then, you know, at the end of the year, I'm going to be at like 250 grand. And then I'll at least have, you know, a couple $1,000 to spend.
You can
myself.
put it in an Excel spreadsheet and it just multiplies.
Yeah.
And that's what people think. I think we grossly overestimate what we can get done in a year.
Yes.
And really undervalue what is like 3 to 5 years of consistent and persistent action look like and result in.
Yeah.
And when you have a family,
yes,
you're definitely thinking, okay, I can't just go all in, right? I have to get this some sort of revenue or income before I can make the transition.
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself personally, when we launched the gym, it was a similar story, right? I was waking up at 3 a.m. I was coming in, coaching in the morning, then going and working at the other company that I was a part owner in
mm-hmm.
all day. And then I was coming back and doing it all over again. But the income was like never quite enough for me to be able to replace what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And so I just waited and just kept pouring into other employees so that they had time to grow. So at what point did you start to realize that like, okay, I got to expand beyond just myself and start hiring other people? Like, when did that happen? How far into your journey?
I think I beat myself up too much before that happened. I probably should have hired employees beforehand, but I think we took on our first couple was like 2016, 2017. And with food service, it's just messy. It's so fucking messy because a catering is much more profitable, right, than meal prep. And so when I started doing caterings, I'm like, this is a good idea. It'll help supplement meal prep. Well, when you get a catering and you need to hire 10 people, you can't hire them on full time.
Right.
It's just people that are going to be working for the catering. So, I mean, I had employees in that way, but it was all just like, yeah, I'll pay you $150 and then $10 an hour. Come work for me at this catering in Briggsdale. You know what I mean? Right. And I would just piece that together, and it was all like family, friends of friends, just random people. I tried putting an Indeed out, and every single time I respond with, no, it's not full time. It's like this one event. You know, I wouldn't get a response
like
back.
15 hours the whole year.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just messy, man. And so I think in 2017 is when I started with one employee, and then up to 2018, and then just kind of slowly built up. But I'm always the guy where, but I have to be at the threshold where I'm just kind of bursting before I'm like, okay, hire somebody else, you know, because I want to make sure that with food service, it goes up and down. And especially these last few years.
Yep.
Yeah. How do you handle it? You know what I mean? What's going to happen next? Yep. Do you keep that person and, you know, slow down and then bleed the money? Or do you let them go, and then let's say your business picks up somehow, and then you need to go find somebody again, and then you're just starting to turn bodies over. You know, you don't develop any leadership skills. You can't get anybody that's like loyal, because you're constantly like, hey, now I got to let you go. You know, go find somebody else. And then that person asks, oh, like, how many employees do you have? How long have they been here? Like, how long have you been open? And they realize, oh, like every single person that's worked here has been turned over in 3 to 6 months.
Yep.
So then you can't really build any loyalty behind the scenes, as opposed to just, you know, brand loyalty up front. But
I know. I love that. I mean, patience is probably the biggest virtue of an entrepreneur. And we hear all the stories. Like the only stories you hear are like the hyper growth companies, right?
Yeah.
We hired, we went from 0 to 600 employees in 3 years, or we're hiring 200 people a year.
Yeah.
We're at 1,000. Those are companies that are going public, but the vast majority of companies out there that are lifestyle type of businesses that are ran by, small business entrepreneurs, those businesses take time,
Oh yeah.
We have people coming on the pod who've been in business for 30 years, right? 30 years, they're clipping a $3 million a year coupon, but it was 30 years of work. I heard a story yesterday about nanny.com. Have you heard of nanny.com?
No.
Nanny.com started out by this woman. It took her 25 years to actually grow the business. She grew it in the first 10 years, the first year she was doing $300,000 a year in revenue. And she was basically just helping people who had to pay their nanny with like a platform to do payment processing. So she built a small network, and then all of a sudden they tried to convince her friends and her close group, convince her that she should start cross-selling other products to these people. And she decided against it and ended up just kept growing the business and kept doing the hard stuff and finding more nannies basically to join the network to help people find nannies and then pay their nannies effectively. And she ended up growing it to like 700,000 nannies.
Jeez.
It took her 24 years to do it. And she sold her business after 24 years for $54 million.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
It didn't happen in a year.
Yeah.
It didn't happen in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So I think most people just need to like change their time horizon,
Yeah.
And so I'd love to know, like for you, what do the next 10 years look like? Like you've been killing yourself building the food prep thing. You know how difficult that is. That's part of the reason why you're on this pod and we partner up and cross-selling and selling into our clients who are fit people who are at least trying to get in shape. I think it's a great idea to get those government contracts and do that long term. But
it won't work.
Yep.
But sustainable food and be able to really scale our business vertically, as opposed to just growing up meal prep, and be a force that is to be reckoned with on a scale that's United States, as opposed to just like, here's this little food prep company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we want to be able to have a real supply chain all over the United States so that we're not relying on, the Shamrocks and the Ciscos and the distributors of the world. Because you see, when a pandemic happens, you know what I mean? We're beholden. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so when inflation goes up and the market doesn't adjust, or people don't adjust their expectations of a burger is going to be $18, you either shop with me or you don't, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't, then I'm going to eat that.
Yeah.
No matter what, and all on the line. So when the food cost goes up, we can't just be like, oh, our meal's $11.50. Now it's $15.50.
Yeah.
We'll get 0 orders. We've tried it before,
Yeah.
So
it takes a while for that to like infiltrate into the market and people get used to it.
Yeah.
You can't just, even though it's happening right now, you can't just flip the switch and increase your prices significantly, which in your case would be like, $5 on an $11 meal. Is
oh, for sure. The cost of chicken was $40 a case in March of 2020. The cost of chicken at the height of the pandemic, this is chicken breast, is $199 a case.
Holy cow! So how do you?
It's like a 60 to 70% yield on chicken breast, right?
Yeah.
So realistically, let's say it's like $70 or $60 for the case total, and that's like raw cooked out weight. Yeah. But when you push it up to $199, all of a sudden the cost per ounce of a chicken breast goes from, okay, let's say it's 80 cents.
Yep.
It goes up to $1.30. When you multiply that, we put 4 ounces of chicken breast in one small meal. Like, think of what that does. And then the cost of the container doubles, and it goes from 35 cents up to 70 cents. And so same thing with labor, right? Yep. Same thing with labels and shipping and everything else. And so our meals originally, let's say it takes us $3 to make a meal. Now all of a sudden it takes us almost $6.50 to make a meal, right? And then the labor and the cost of, to rent our place and utilities and everything else.
Too, yep.
Yeah. And now you're going negative.
Yep.
And so, and additionally, when people drop off and they're like, shoot, I got to cancel because Now my family's in a tough spot. You have to, take your licks, right? But adjusting to that takes so much time.
Yep.
And so now looking back on it and being able to vertically scale, I mean, the 50-year goal would be to be in schools and to teach the kids that are going through schools from elementary, middle school, high school, teach them about agriculture, how to grow their own food.
Yeah, something we've lost.
Yeah, and from literally from seedlings, right? And then middle school would do something like, like taking care and maintenance. And then high school would be into that selling. Like, how do you go and sell food? What's the cost? Like, how do you look at markets and adjust your costs and be able to sell food? And who do you sell food to? And delivery and all that stuff. And that's really been left behind. I mean, over 100 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, after World War II, we just started becoming a consumer economy.
Yeah.
We don't produce or manufacture anything. I mean, I look at my grandparents coming out of the Great Depression, and they could can, they could dry food, they could garden.
Yeah.
They could, skin a rabbit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those are skills we just definitely do not have. So I
Yeah.
love that. And I can see how vertically integrating and controlling that from a farm to table, like the healthier the food, it's generally more expensive because it costs more to produce. But then you throw in the travel time to get it from where it is to the table, that's way more expensive. But if you're in your backyard and you're on your own farm and you're walking 100 feet to go produce the food and then ship it out, now all of a sudden you got something pretty special.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, you can sustain yourself pretty well, and it doesn't take a lot of maintenance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be able to do that. And the goal has shifted a little bit because we wanted to just vertically integrate at first, but you look at a lot of what's happened the last couple of years and how much pain it put on myself, my family, and now it's kind of like the personal goal of we want to like implement this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a huge goal, and it's way down the road, but where would we be if we were all much healthier right now?
Healthier, more self-sustaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where would we be just as a nation? How would a pandemic affect us?
And I think that's crucial for entrepreneurs listening to just recognize the mission's got to be way bigger than just make money, build a cool brand.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get kicked in the teeth at some point.
Oh, several times.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
What are you going to do what's going to keep you going, right? It's got to be way bigger than just yourself and what you want. So I love that you guys have a big vision like that. Is that something that you regularly communicate with the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they know we have some goals, and I always try to teach it downstream and exemplify and I always try to tell them why we're doing what we're doing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Why it's important, because it comes down to like the nitty gritty details for us. It's like, we have a customer right now. You need to have your Supernatural Eats shirt on. It needs to be tucked in, and you need to make sure that you greet this person the right way, nice and professionally. And the reason that you do that is maybe they'll never use us again. But if they do use us again, right, then that's one person that's going to come back. Just imagine when we have 500 people of catering customers that are going to come back, and then 1,000, and then 1,500.
Yep.
What does that do for you?
100%.
Your pay goes up. You get to manage employees. You get to do what I'm doing with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With somebody else. And eventually you get to build a life. You get to have benefits. You get to buy a nicer car than you have. You get to have a family and sustain that family. It's all kind of a trickle down effect, and it starts with the details.
I love that. I just wrote a post about that, just talking specifically about how important it is to pour into your employees and raise them up. They're the best asset that you have,
Yeah.
Like if you work a job, you invest in the stock market, maybe you buy a house, maybe buy a couple of rentals.
Mm-hmm.
But if you run a business, you invest in employees.
Yeah.
And they will 10x if you get them in the right seat, believe in them, and empower them to do what they need to do.
And you build loyalty with that as well.
Yes.
A lot of the conversations are, to be honest, I mean, a lot of those conversations, they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because people don't like to seek something that they don't typically do, or that's outside of their little comfort zone. And especially in our industry, man, we're not dealing with a $100,000 a year employee.
Right.
And so bridging that gap between this is where you are and this is where you can be, people can't see it. So you have to paint it for them.
Yeah, well, there's a reason that you're the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Most entrepreneurs are visionaries, right? And they
Yeah.
can see down the road. And the hardest part is to cast that vision to people who don't see it, and
Yeah.
then remain consistent and continually tell the same message and encourage them and coach them and push them and drive them in that direction.
Absolutely.
So we alluded to it. Obviously, you've been working on this since 2015, but like, what's the hardest moments that you've had? I'm sure there's a couple in your head that are like distinct on the calendar, you know?
Yeah.
And then from that, I'd love to know how it changed your business. How did it help you go from where you were to where you are now?
I'd say a really big defining moment was like March 23rd or 24th, right after there was an emergency declared in the pandemic.
So in 2020?
Yeah, in 2020. And it was myself. And at that time, I had two other guys. I was trying to bring on another two people. And I had my kitchen manager that was starting in 2 weeks. I just hired him on like Monday. He actually came in and he had COVID.
Oh, no.
And he was trying not to cough. He told me like months later, he's like, dude, I had COVID. And I was trying not to cough in the interview.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I was kind of like sick too. And I was trying not to cough on you. Like we both were sick at the time. It was weird. But so I had these guys and I was just, I couldn't invest the time in them to show them. I had a manager and a guy working under him, and we had just had somebody that left. And that's part of me. Like I wasn't the same leader I am now as I was back in even 2020.
Yeah,
and in
just
6
evolved.
months, I'll be a different leader. Right.
100%.
And so these two guys decided to pick up and leave on the same day. And it was on like a Thursday at like 10 a.m. in the morning. So we had a meeting at I think 9 a.m. that morning.
Yeah.
And I was late for the meeting. I needed to be there at 9:30. So I showed up and they were both waiting for me. And they're like, dude, you're late. Like we were going to meet. We're leaving. We're done. We're out of here. And I was like, no, you're not. And they're like, yeah, we're like leaving right now. I'm like, dude, give me 2 weeks. Like, what the heck? And they were like, no. And they were just so upset about like there wasn't enough guidance back then for me, and just being able to help them on a day-to-day basis.
Yep. They were floundering a little bit.
Yeah.
They felt lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you do now that's different?
I mean, dude, I do one-on-ones with everybody. I'm at the kitchen nearly every single day talking with them. If I'm not at the kitchen, I'm in conversation with them, asking them if they have questions. I'm making sure that like if there's a catering that we have to do, or if there's a schedule that we have coming up, like we plan a month in advance where I'm like, hey, this is October. I just want to let you guys know October is going to be really busy,
Right.
but October you're going to make more money. You know what I mean? And so the communication has really, really helped, and them seeing me where I'll be there in the kitchen from 7:30 in the morning until after they leave, and then I'll be back the next morning. Like this morning I was in at 5:45.
Yep. Cooking.
And I had left after everybody yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, shoot, that they see the work ethic come through.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're setting the tone. So what were you doing in 2020 that prevented you from having as much time available to be with the employees, invest in them, and train them up so that they didn't feel left behind?
Honestly, nothing's really changed much. I mean, I'm almost working harder than I was back then.
Yeah. But what made those guys feel like they were floundering and they couldn't get enough of you? Were you just too busy? Like,
I think I didn't articulate, I didn't communicate the right way, and I didn't like face the problems head on. I was much more indirect in my speaking and talking with them. So if they were like, hey, do we have to come in and like do this and work? I'd be like thinking about it in my head. Do you have to show up at this time? Why don't we say like sometime around like 7:45? Yeah. When in reality, I needed them there at 7 a.m. And then I would text them the night before at like 6 p.m. and be like, hey man, I really need you in at 7 a.m. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I just did that to death, like with everything.
Yeah.
Ordering, hey, how many, cases of asparagus should I get? Maybe like one, maybe 1.5. And nothing was ever just like clear, instead of being like, dude, just get 2 cases of asparagus just in case we need extra.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we would be short, and it was because I told them, even though the kitchen manager at the time is supposed to do all the numbers, right?
Sure.
I didn't give him clear guidance on what he needed to do. And that's, I think, when you're leading people and you're like confident in, this is what we need at this time, like, let's do it. And then it's on you. And if you make that mistake, you just come back, say you're sorry, and just be like, dude, I messed up. I'm going to mess up a lot more too, but I'm going to try my hardest next time, and we're going to get it right.
Yeah. If your employees sense that you're uncertain, then they'll be uncertain.
Yeah.
And even though obviously with time you get better at making decisions, you have more experience, and you have more confidence that it's going to be a good idea to go do X, Y, and Z. But initially you don't. Yeah. And so you're the guy that's just making it up, right? Like, I believe this is what I think we should do.
Yeah. Which
means you have to have extreme confidence to get them bought in. But it also means if it messes up or goes sideways, it's your responsibility 100%.
Yeah.
When I'm doing consulting, especially with newer entrepreneurs, one of the things I always see is this lack of clarity of having the hard conversations. Mm-hmm. It's only a hard conversation if it goes on for 6 months,
Yeah.
But if you're direct and to the point, and they have extreme clarity, they'll appreciate that. It won't be a hard conversation. Mm-hmm. But beating around the bush is definitely the fastest way for you to dissolve the trust between you and your employees. And then it's kind of like dogs in a pack. Mm-hmm. They sense the weakness. Mm-hmm. They'll attack or undercut you, or potentially just leave.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest transition to make, from going from being employed to then now being a leader and having employees. Mm-hmm. Is it sounds good when you're sitting in the armchair talking about all the things that the leadership and the CEO should do. It's a whole different thing when it's sitting on your shoulder. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I think people that are from the outside looking in on it, they don't understand that it comes down to just a one-on-one interaction.
Yep.
Like you and somebody else.
Totally.
They think that it's just, you're going to get up in front of all 25 of your employees and you just delegate and just tell them what to do, like all easy. Like, people have to be bought into you in order to listen to you. 100%. And if they buy into you, it's because of everything before that's happened, right?
Yep.
Like you're showing up to work on time with them, right? I've been late plenty of times to work, you know what I mean? But every time we get the job done, or something happens, and I can be reliable for them in another way, And so solving problems for them and helping them, and I guess in turn solve problems and leading them in that way, and knowing, hey, I can make a mistake, but I can rebound from it. I mean, people really buy into you when you're leading from the front, as opposed to just trying to like shot call.
100%. Do you guys have a way that you like score performance? Because I know, like, for us, one of the things that we do in all my businesses is we just have a scorecard, and somebody owns a certain metric or is responsible for a certain thing getting done, and we measure it every single week. Is that something that you do?
We don't have a scorecard. I'll be honest, man.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's a different dynamic too. I mean, most of my stuff is commission-driven type of businesses, so scorecards are pretty easy to make, right? Mm-hmm. But in something like what you're doing, it's a little more challenging. So how do you keep that accountability, other than like doing the jobs, being on time, executing what they're supposed to do?
Yeah. I think at this point where we're at right now, we're in this mode of growth.
Yep.
And so every single week we're like scrambling for time, and then we get organized, and then we grow a little bit, scramble, and then we get organized.
Right.
And so down the road, I would say it's definitely something that makes sense. A scorecard for us is based on how we set up, if we're on time. The biggest thing with us is cooking the food right, and it's by taste. It's not really like, oh, do you get an 8 or 9 or a 10 for taste,
Right.
Like, we'll literally all just sit around a meal and taste it and see what it's like, And so everybody takes the accountability for what the flavor of a meal is. And if we're on time, we're on time. Like, we needed to be there this morning at 7:15. We were there at 7:15.
Yep.
That's a good scorecard, I guess, in our industry. But there's not like there's not a real like KPI or a metric that we measure just for employees at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, so just shooting off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you how to run your business, just have ideas. It could be like, number of meals outputted, how many positive reviews did we get this week?
Yeah.
Measuring the big milestones that are like winning checkpoints for everybody.
Yeah.
So everybody can see like, oh, okay, when we get, 300 meals out and we get 10 reviews in a week that are all 5 stars, like we're killing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm on the production line and I was responsible for 100 of those meals.
Yeah.
And I got 75 out, but everybody else got 100.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how do we help you do more meals and keep the quality high? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So just food for thought.
Yeah.
Well, what's your big thing in the next year that you want to get done? You landed some really big government contracts. Food prep's going good.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got on your 12-month timeline? That
we want to land a full food service contract on a base.
A military base?
Yes, that's the big, because right now we have some dining facility attendant contracts. One is 5 years, the other one is 17 months. We want to land a 5-year full food service contract, our first one, and that's where big operations will basically consume 35 to 40 employees on one of those contracts, and then we'll be able to build the past performance for any other contract that we get in the military for food service at any point in time.
Love that.
Yeah, that's the big goal. And then I would say a smaller goal that's also a big goal, but it's almost there, is getting that HACCP plan approved. Because once we do,
what's that?
HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. And what it is just tracks the food safety from start until when you deliver.
Got it.
And there's critical control points in there of when you're cooking or when you're cooling, all that stuff that's included in the hazard analysis plan has to be approved by the county. And then we're running a variance because we're a retail food establishment license. We're not a manufacturer. So we have to have this little bubble variance out here that gives us that authority to vacuum skin package meals.
Got it.
Because as the law is set, at least here in Larimer County, are you guys in Larimer County?
Yep.
Yeah. So at least here in Larimer County, you can't have vacuum skin packaged meals under a retail food establishment license. It has to be like a manufacturing license.
Yeah, so just one more thing to navigate. And I think we talked about this, but the reason you're doing that is so that you can extend the shelf life of the meal, right?
Yeah, well, we want to extend the shelf life, and that was a big hurdle because the county hit on that right away. They still want to, because in a retail food establishment, you have 7 days from when the package is open to deliver it to the customer. Otherwise, you have to throw it out.
Yep.
And so they want to maintain that. But we can track, and we might have to do tests for it. It depends on what the food scientist gal that I'm working with is going to do, but we want to be able to extend the shelf life from a scientific perspective, meaning like, hey, listeria is not going to grow one log in 3 or 4 or 5 more days if we control this temperature, and we can track that temperature as well. So, and then there's shipping that's going to come down the pipeline as soon as we get the HACCP plan done. So
I think when you get all that, though, that kind of goes back to our Nindy.com story, right? Of like, that's the really hard thing.
Oh, yeah.
That if you can crack that code, it increases the value of your business exponentially.
Yeah.
Because now if somebody were looking to invest or potentially buy or acquire or whatever it may be, they're looking at that and they're saying, this puts us miles ahead of the competition.
Yeah.
Build a bigger moat, as Warren Buffett likes to say, right? Of like, how deep is our moat? How wide is our moat? How hard is it for somebody to infiltrate and to do what it is that we do? So I love that.
Yeah.
That's a big decision. Do you have a framework that you use for making decisions fast or quickly? How do you because that's a lot of work.
Yeah. With this decision with the HACCP plan, it came from the cost of containers is where it started. So the way that our business model is set up is from an idea that I thought about when I started. I didn't think about the customer as much as I thought about how hard it would be to replicate us. I thought that the business was going to go sky fucking high right away. So I'm like, somebody has to, like, they're going to want to copy me, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be at the top. And so I'm going to make sure that people can't copy me.
Right.
So then I made the menu change every week, and there's 3 different meals. And then there was a standard plan and a lean plan. And that's all hard to navigate because you got to have labels in advance. They have to be made. You have to have like an automated way of making labels. And a dietitian has to make them if you're going to say this is crafted by a dietitian, right? And this is quote unquote healthy. So I tried to make it a hard business model to replicate rather than a business model that makes sense. So that shift with our HACCP plan is going to change everything.
Right.
That's
such a good piece of advice though. Like I don't want to just scroll past that because you were selfishly building what you wanted to build.
Yes.
With some idea that this is a good solution for the customer.
Yeah.
And from everything you're saying, that's slowly shifting to what's the best end game for the customer? What's going to make them the happiest? Make it as easy for them to buy the product. Remove all the obstacles, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's too expensive. It doesn't last long enough. What if I don't eat it?
Yeah.
And this HACCP plan solves that. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You just kind of stumbled on that over time, or was there a distinct?
Well, truth be told, I had no idea I needed a HACCP plan. So let me walk you through just a painful lesson in business. And that's why I was commenting before we started. I'm like, dude, you fucking set yourself up. Like you just do the research and you do so much analysis before you start. And I'm like the opposite.
Yeah.
Like if I see a pain point and it's hitting me every single week, like bam, bam, bam. I'm like, all right, I'm shifting now.
Sure.
Because there's a reason. That's like my gut, like that I'm kind of guiding off of a little bit. But it came from container cost. Our container cost went from, it was 25 cents for the bottom and the top of the container. And it's up to almost 75 cents now.
Yeah. Triple. Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm looking into like other containers. I'm like, okay, trays, like what, like thinner plastic? Is this going to be microwave safe? And then I stumbled across some trays that were vacuum skin packaged. I'm like, oh, those trays look nice. And then it was perfect online. It had the little meal in it. And I was like, this looks good. It's cool. Like it looks almost 3D. There's a meal that is sucked down by plastic on a tray. How much are the trays? 18 cents. How much is the film? It's like 2 cents to go over 2 meals. So it's really 1 cent. And I'm like, oh shoot, okay. Well, this could be something. So how do I do this? Do I just get one of those vacuum sealers that you have, in your house? And I start looking at it. And then I came across this YouTube video of a vacuum skin packaging machine. It was called the Retray 30. And so this machine, you'll put 2 trays in, put the meals, or put the 2 trays in with the meals, you push it in, and then it VSPs your meal, you bring it out. And I'm like, vacuum skin packaging. Like, I go see that at Sam's Club, and the salmon there lasts for like 14 days. Right. Maybe that'll extend my shelf life too.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, and then I start looking at vacuum skin package machines. And they're like 40 grand. I'm like, oh shit, that's a roadblock. Like, do I have the money? At the time I had the money. I'm like, maybe I should invest in it. So I did my research on the cost of the tray. I did my research on the VSP machine. I did my research on the film, where I was going to get it. I even got these like biodegradable trays and whatnot. I'm like, boom, I'm bringing this machine and I'm going to start VSPing meals.
You're going to kill it.
Yeah. So
been there, done that.
Yeah, so after I had done all the research, 1 week later, we have a guy come in to do our county health inspection. Yeah. And we're going through, dude, we got like 100%. It was the best inspection I've ever got. We were so ready for it. It worked out great. And at the very end, I just told him, hey, so I'm thinking about like vacuum skin packaging meals really soon so that, we can extend the shelf life on our meals. And he was like, vacuum skin package, what's that? And I knew at that moment, like, oh, shit, I bet they have this huge process behind it. He's like, is that like reduced oxygen? And I'm like, yeah, there's no oxygen in the container. And he's like, oh my gosh, like listeria can grow in there, and Clostridium botulinum can grow in there, and that has like a 40% death rate. Did you know that? And I'm like, yeah, I know that, man. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. I just want to let you know. Yeah. And I just kind of like bullshitted a little bit. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to have a HACCP plan. And I'm like, what do you mean?
What's that?
Yeah. And then that's when I had to go down the road. And then I had to look in, and then he's like, yeah, and you can't ride it either. Now that I know, like, I could ride it. It's just like there's a literal food scientist that did our HACCP plan for us.
Yeah.
So then that's a whole nother 8 to 10 grand on top of the machine, on top of the containers. And by the way, the containers, you got to get a pallet. You know what I mean? The trays. Same thing with the film. So then I started to realize, like, shit, this is a long, drawn-out process. And I went and purchased this machine. I already had a deposit of 25 grand on this machine when he was in the kitchen.
Right.
And so then it all came full circle. And now we're in the point of meeting with them and whatnot. But yeah, there was.
But, I mean, I think that the lesson in that is, like, again, pain point, go solve it. Creates another pain point. You can give up, quit, stop trying.
Yeah.
Or you can realize that there's opportunity in that, which is, if it's hard for me to get it done, it's going to be hard for everybody to get done.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just don't know if there's any way to ever completely remove the risk of that type of stuff when you start a business.
Absolutely not.
Like, most people they create a plan, but planning's completely useless when you get into it. But the only way to discover those types of things is to just be in the game.
Yeah.
You gotta be a player. You can't be an armchair quarterback. Even side hustling, at a certain point, you got to, like, pull the ripcord and just go all in order to actually grow the business.
Yeah, man. And the forecasting, like, you can research yourself to death.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's one thing where I've kind of learned through trial and error that, yeah, I can research and I can put everything together really, really organized. By the time I do that, it's 6 months down the road. It's a year down the road.
Yep.
Because I have 3 kids.
Yep.
And I have a business to run, and I have other things that pop up, and I got to work 16 hours this day, and I have to get this bid and this proposal ready for, this government entity, and I have a new employee starting, and I need to send them credentials so that they can log into their time tracking, and I have all these millions of little things to do. Oh yeah, and I forget, I got to go to gymnastics too, right? Oh, and then my wife needs a little love too, right? Like you got
to try to hit the gym somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah, and then I got to hit the gym. So I've just learned, like, dude, I can research myself to death, or I can be like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a decision, and I'm going to make it right.
Yep.
Yeah,
and I think I'm similar too. I come from the world of media, marketing, and technology, so my research is faster because I just have experience, so I can get through and navigate those things pretty quick,
Mm-hmm.
And then I just find the right people to join my team and try to offload and delegate as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson that I've learned is, you're never going to know it all.
Yeah.
You learn more by doing.
Mm-hmm.
Find the right people, hire them, pay them as well as you possibly can, pay them more.
Mm-hmm.
And then offload, delegate as quickly as you possibly can so that you can get into your sweet spot. But what would you tell new or aspiring entrepreneurs when they're kind of getting on this journey to launching their first business, or maybe, handling their first couple of years? What's your advice for those guys?
A few different things. I would look at something that you're passionate about, something that you have your heart in, and that doesn't mean like all your heart, right? Like if you want to help place old people in nursing homes or something like that, you know, like just do something that you have some passion about, because there's going to be so many hard times that you're going to go through, and you need passion at the bottom. And that's what's really going to keep you from quitting. Because if you're not passionate about it and it's all money driven, when you have a hard time, you're going to be like, fuck this, I'm going to start something else, Yeah,
you got to you got to stop digging holes and start digging wells.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's one piece of advice. The second piece of advice I would say is never quit. So throughout the ups and the downs, right? And everybody says that. That's just one thing that you have to know, that it's going to take not 1 year, not 2 years. If you want to be an entrepreneur, that's like a lifelong commitment. It's like a lifestyle change. If you want to eat healthier and you want to get fit, make a lifestyle change forever. And then you'll never have to worry about going on the next fad diet. Like, just make sure that you're in it for the long haul, 10 years, 15, 20 years, and don't stop, learn from the mistakes that you make, and don't keep doing them over and over again. You go out, you make a little bit of money, don't go and you spend it all. Maybe you go make 50 or 60 grand in a year, and you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna go buy myself another car, and then you have no money the next year.
Yeah.
It's like, learn from that mistake,
Winter is always coming.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's always ups and downs, man. And especially if you want to expand. And I would say those are like the three main that I would focus on. And then, a ton of other small little bits of advice here and there. But
yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you have to be so committed to it that you're not willing to walk away from it. It's got to be more important to you than getting a job. And I know for me personally, like thinking the thought of getting a job now, like makes me want to go nosedive off the top of this building.
Oh, dude,
It's
I would be the worst employee.
Terrible.
You don't want me.
Yeah, because you said it at the beginning, it's about independence and creativity, and that's ultimately what we're chasing. You also said something about money. I'm interested to know how your view of money and time has maybe changed since becoming an entrepreneur.
Well, when I first started, I thought that I was going to make a ton of money, and I thought that money. Yeah, man, I thought that money was that's what I was chasing.
Yeah.
Right. And really what I'm chasing is a goal and a passion and something that I like to do. And money is a symptom of that. And happiness is a symptom of that as well. I was just telling Darius, we were chatting, and I'm like, dude, some of the times where I'm the most busy and I go through these like mental hurdles of just like, gosh, this is so fucking hard right now. Like, how am I going to get through it? And I just wake up the next day and you just go, and somehow it works out. I don't even know how.
Yeah.
That's where God comes in.
100%.
You know what I mean? That's where God comes in to in that gray area and get you to the next day and get you to wake up and do one more time,
Yeah, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're operating in faith, right?
Absolutely.
And so you got to go into it every day with like, this is going to work out. My life is destined for greatness,
Yes.
And God's got me, and the right person, the right
Yes.
opportunity, the answer will just present itself. I think
does. It always does. If you think about it, how many times you always think like, shit, this is going to be like the end. Like, this might break me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in the grand scheme of things, 10 years down the road, it's so small. It's a pebble on, it's a pebble of a road bump.
Yep.
When you look at it in the grand scheme of things, but it always works out if you just keep going.
Yeah,
Always.
I call that the 90% rule, which is 90% of the stuff we worry about never actually happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's true. That's true.
You said, and just to kind of package that up in a bow, what you said, but you're chasing purpose. And that's something that we talk a lot about here with Painted Profits, is the kind of the four freedoms that entrepreneurs are going after: freedom of time, money, relationship, and purpose. Purpose is at the peak. And in order to get to the purpose, that helps set your why, but it takes time to get there. Like, you can't just go from starting a business to like living in your ultimate purpose.
Yeah.
So step one, get your time freedom. Step two, start working on building up your money, stacking your cash, and putting yourself into a position where you have more time, freedom, and money so that you can focus on the right relationships.
Yeah.
And then once you get there, you have this team of just irreplaceable employees who are passionate about being there, which is what you said, right? Loyalty and pouring into them and helping them build their life up, so that you can get to that end game. But you don't get to the end game by yourself, and you don't get there in a year. You get there in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and you got to have that right mindset going into it.
Oh, it takes a long time, and there's just so many variables. And I always relate entrepreneurship back to your own personality, because it's not a template that you follow.
Right.
Your business is going to revolve around who you are as a person.
That's a great word.
And yeah, man, like what you're privy to and what you're not privy to is going to be exposed in business at some point in time. If you're not good at finances in your personal life, holy shit, you're going to have a rough time in business for a lot of years until you figure that out.
100%.
If you're not good at sales, if you're not good at approaching people, if you're not good at operations or logistics, you're going to have a heck of a time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's almost like a button, like pushes. Every single week for us, I was horrible at logistics. I was just not an organized person.
Right.
And every single week, I just pushed that button. Finally, we developed an API system where we can organize all of our orders after 4 years being in business. And I'm like, shoot,
Yeah. So you had to figure that out. Do you handle all the logistics of where stuff's going? Does somebody else handle that?
Oh, it's all organized. Like, we have an API
it goes in
system.
and looks at all the addresses and then starts to.
So our website, we have this API system that scrapes our website every 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then it'll organize it into what we call Scrape, and Scrape is proprietary. And so it has all the customers' info, their phone number, their address, and then it has different tabs of like deliveries. How many bags does this customer have? What are the recipes? And that's where we print all of our labels out at one, as opposed to just printing one by one by one. And the order is on the label for the customer, and the user freeze by date, the nutrition label, what's in the meal, like all the ingredients.
And you guys built that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's sick.
Yeah. Yeah, from the ground up. Yeah, man. And it's one of those things, I don't know if we could like white label that eventually, but it's it's 2 years in the making now. And we were just using Excel spreadsheets. And so every single week I would go in and there would be a customer that canceled, but they didn't want to cancel permanently. They just wanted to spend 1 week. So I would like outline their name in red.
Right.
And then they would, resubscribe, and then I have to go in the next week and then outline their name in clear fill, and I just did that so many times, and I would be the one having to go through it, and I dedicate like 15, 20 minutes to it.
Yeah.
And what do you do when you fast track through something? You always fuck something up.
You miss somebody's order.
So, dude, just forever, one customer would be missed. They wouldn't get meals. You know what I mean? And then another customer. And then 2 weeks later, we'd have a couple good weeks. I'm like, I got this shit. And then another customer would be missed. And then I'd be like, dang it. And then somebody wouldn't have their protein bites. And then, so it just got to the point where I'm like, what can I do? And
well,
so,
you never missed my order. So that's
yeah.
all that matters.
Yeah, I made sure. I'm like, Samson, all right, let me make sure that he's getting an order today, no matter what.
Protein bite, he'll be a fan forever.
Yeah, yeah.
Which those are amazing, by the way. Do you have a habit or routine that helps you stay on track on a daily basis?
My morning routine.
Yeah, what's that look like?
I wake up and I drink like a quart of water first while I'm heating up some coffee. I get some coffee and I sit down at my dinner table. And I can't sit in my office. My office is like in my room.
Right.
And my daughter's 10 months. And so if I go and turn the light on, she's going to wake up screaming.
Yep, and then your whole day is sideways.
Yeah, I haven't been able to do that for like a year now.
Yeah.
So, and I pray.
Love it.
I pray over that day and what I want to accomplish that day and what I need help with that day and what I'm grateful for that day. I'm staying healthy. It's huge.
Yep.
I could drive away right now and go get in a wreck and crippled, and my whole life and my family would be in shambles for a while. You know what I mean? Because I'm the main guy that's working in my family. Praying over being the best leader, the best father that I can be, the best husband, and just trying to make sure that God puts the right words and the right know-how for the people that I'm talking with just for that day.
Yeah, we're just vessels, man.
Yeah.
He gets to speak through us. I love that.
I don't want to do it by myself, dude. I don't. I tried doing it before then, and I think, I strayed away from being a Christian, and I was in shambles, up and down, unhappy, doing drugs, meeting the wrong people, meeting the wrong girls, everything,
Yeah, man, the Bible is just a playbook for how to live a meaningful and fulfilled life.
Yeah.
And sometimes people try to overthink it, but there's a reason that it has existed for as long as it has.
Yeah.
Right? Is because there's some wisdom and truth in that, though we may not want to believe it.
Yeah.
But when you can recenter and get back to that, and it doesn't matter which entrepreneur I talk to, whether they're a Christian or not, they always have some sort of belief in this higher power wants goodness for their life. You know what I mean? And I think that, people understand that the Lord is for them and not against them. And if more people step into their creativity and their purpose and do what the Lord put them here to do, that the world would probably be a much happier and better place to live in.
Oh, it absolutely would. Even if you don't believe in God, and you don't believe, you say the Bible is just a book, a random book, some random person wrote it, and you don't believe in Christianity, you don't believe in anything. Even if you don't, I would say that if you can try to live by a template of who Jesus was when he walked the earth, you would be a much better person for it and live by a moral compass. Because if you're not, even if you don't believe it, you're trying to live to a certain moral compass, right? You
Yeah.
see all these people that are like, be kind, like be grateful, love your neighbor, like all this fluffy shit.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to walk the same line that Jesus walked.
Yep.
They just say it differently and they don't believe in it.
Yep.
But you're still following it.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and I think to be an entrepreneur, like, it requires you to be selfless.
Yeah.
And people think entrepreneurs are super selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of it is nobody ever built a big company by themselves.
Yeah.
In fact, we usually make the least amount of money for the longest.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Eventually, we make more, but that takes years of dedication and risk taking and pouring into other people in order to get that result. So I love that. That's the lesson in the playbook that we're all trying to do, is just walk like that dude did, right?
Dude, when I
AKA
see somebody
Jesus,
yeah.
Jesus Christ, baby, right?
When I see somebody online, like a good like if I see a picture of you and your wife,
Yep.
you know, and you're like, hey, I just closed a 500 apartment deal or whatever. Casey did $5 million in sales last year, whatever it is. I'm happy because not only because I'm happy for you and Casey and what that brings to your children. I know that the message you're doing and all that, right? But I'm happy because I know what you went through to get that.
Yes.
I know the pain in your head that you went through to get that. I know the struggle. I know all that, the mental bullshit where people are doubting you, or they're saying stuff behind your back, or they're saying Samson's selfish, or Samson's this and Casey's that, and oh, did you hear that Samson's not talking to this person anymore?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all of the little bouts that you have to fight, and to get there,
Yeah.
I know that that's extremely difficult.
And every entrepreneur does that. And I think that's a good way to kind of cap this off as we close out the podcast. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to surround yourself with other entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And people who get it.
Yeah.
Because if you're surrounding yourself with non-entrepreneurs, you will drive yourself crazy. And they will convince you eventually that you're not good enough, capable enough, you're too crazy, you're too selfish, you've changed, whatever it may be. Because the term misery loves company is real talk.
Oh, yeah.
They will pull you back down.
Yeah. Yeah, you never get put down by somebody that's doing better than you.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate it. I'm just proud of you and excited to see what's next. And when that farm gets built, I can't wait to walk that with you and like see the whole vision come to life.
Yeah.
And hopefully it happens in 10 years, not 50 years. Let's go build that first farm.
Yeah.
But I'd love to have you come back like a year from now
Mm-hmm.
and have this same conversation and kind of recap on everything that you've been through and what it looks like and all the goals that you set, and share that story again. Would you be down to come back?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
Yeah, man.
See ya.
See you later, folks.